Hello everyone, welcome to Walk the Parks. My name is Blake. Today we're going to be going on an awesome, full, scary part of the Angel's Landing hike in Zion National Park. This is kind of a unique video because it is shot in 8K 360. So in order to get the full benefit of this video, and really you kind of either have to use your mouse because you can look around and you can look all around you and see all the beautiful exposure that Angel's Landing has to offer. And we are going to do the whole thing together. So we basically just started. There are some restrooms right there, and I would highly recommend using those before you kind of start the scary part, because this is called Scouts Lookout. And beyond this point, this sandwich board right here, if you move your mouse around to see it, kind of warns you do need a permit to go past this point. You can go to Scouts Lookout without a permit, which is pretty cool because you can go up and you can go. There is another trail that continues up, the Rim Trail, and you can get some amazing views from there that are really just as good, or almost just as good as Angel's Landing. So if you do end up getting scared or Angel's Landing is too much for you, you can turn around. Right here is where the scary part actually starts. You can see the famous chains. So the chains are going to be with us for pretty much the entire rest of the hike. Not every step of the way, but quite a few of them. This hike is also quite steep, and I'm super excited for you guys to watch this video because I really think the 360 camera angles really do a good job of showing the exposure and the steepness. Maybe in some instances it overdoes it a little bit, but I also don't want to underemphasize like this is a lot of people do this hike and it's kind of at the max of their ability. It kind of surprises me sometimes. Like, I think it's cool people challenge themselves, but sometimes on Angel's Landing it surprises me how many people are really what looks like at their limit. If you do have a fear of heights, this will be a challenging trail for you. I am not going to lie. However, if you're used to it, or if you've been doing a lot of exploring, like I have been lucky to have done a bunch of exploring around this whole area and the Grand Canyon, I don't think Angel's Landing is too bad. But again, you definitely see a lot of people out here that are testing their limits in terms of what they're comfortable with. One note about this is that I have been super lucky. I've been able to hike Angel's Landing a bunch of times. I mean, at least 5, if not, I don't even know, if not quite a few more times than that. Is that this is the least crowded that I've ever seen it. I think I did take the first bus. Well, actually, I think it was the second bus because I was surprised by the line at the visitor center for the shuttle bus. But I got on the second bus, so really almost no one on here, which is quite rare. Typically, this can be, I don't want to say it can get crowded. There can definitely be people on the Angel's Landing hike, but the thing more than the crowds is that sometimes you'll get behind someone who is very nervous and therefore very slow moving. And also, I think some of those very nervous and very slow moving hikers are kind of unlikely to let you pass, like, because maybe they're not thinking about that. They're just kind of in their zone, and I get it, but the thing here is you really want to kind of pack your patience. This hike can definitely be a test in patience, just because you do have to wait so much, like, because there's only one real trail in a lot of places. You can't really go around people, otherwise you would fall off a super steep ledge, or it's just not really conducive to passing. So definitely pack your patience. If you're in a hurry, I definitely would not recommend this hike. So as I said, you can keep going. You can go up to Scouts Lookout without a permit, and that's a really beautiful area. There are some restrooms there. Again, there's really nowhere to go to the restroom that's good anywhere along the Angel's Landing hike, so I'd really recommend using it. And even though it's quite short from here, it is also very challenging, so I would recommend using that restroom. The whole hike is approximately 5.4 miles round trip, and you gain about 1,500 feet in elevation. Most hikers take around 4 hours to complete this hike, according to the park website, but some definitely do take longer. So basically, how you start this hike is you go to the visitor center and you get on the shuttle bus. I'm not sure if they even allow. I know in the winter in the past that you could drive down and park at the trailhead, but I'm not sure if that's true anymore. I know during almost all of the year, because Zion is so heavily visited, you do have to take a shuttle bus to get to Angel's Landing, and that was certainly the case for me. So basically, you get on the shuttle bus and you get off at the Grottos stop. And the Grotto stop, you basically just cross the road and then you're headed towards Angel's Landing. There is a turn off almost immediately when you start that trail called the Cayenta Trail, and you can go up and see the emerald pools via that way, or you just kind of continue straight towards Angel's Landing. The hike is mostly paved all the way up to Scouts Lookout, where it kind of splits off and where the chains start. Gosh, this is looking ahead at where we're going. It's absolutely beautiful. I love Zion National Park, and I really do love Angel's Landing in particular. Again, make sure to move your mouse around and check out the views. You might not want to have it just focused on me because I'm just breathing heavy, and gosh, I was kind of feeling out of shape for this hike. So there's that. But I really hope this hike is helpful. Like you can see kind of what the exposure looks like. You know how it's getting narrow. Here we're at quite a narrow part in the trail, so you can kind of check that out. So beautiful though. And then this part, you're kind of at not the midpoint, but you get a good view of the rest of the hike. You are going all the way to the top of what you can see along this ridge. And even though it's not that long, it's certainly quite steep and challenging. So a permit is required for this hike. There's kind of two options. Basically, to get a permit, you go to recreation.gov. And at recreation.gov, there are two options. One is you can kind of, if you know months in advance that you're going to be in Zion, you can book or try to get on a lottery to win a permit like that. Or you can get on the day before lottery. That is what I did. I've had some luck with I've won a few times on the day before lottery. Just be patient, kind of try day after day. If you don't get it the first day or the second day, try the third day, and try to be flexible with your times. I think they give you different time windows. One of them was before 9 a.m., the other one was 9 a.m. to noon, and the other one was afternoon as a start time. So I got the earliest start time and took the first bus out, and that's why there's no one on this trail. Again, I love this video because there aren't as many people out here, but at the same time, it doesn't give the most common view that I've experienced on the trail, where there are quite a bit more people. There is a big parking lot at the visitor center, but due to super heavy demand and traffic in this park, sometimes it can fill early. Zion, too, like almost all the spots get filled on the roads as well. So certainly keep that in mind. So wonderful place, but Zion is relatively small in terms of the areas where most people go. Like the wilderness is quite large. I'm sure you can go explore a hole if you're willing to go off trail and stuff like that. But the areas where most people actually go do get quite filled up and crowded, like in terms of finding a parking spot and things like that can be quite difficult. So keep that in mind. Although it's kind of funny to say that, and then there's not a single person in my frame right now. Gosh, this is another beautiful spot. Absolutely gorgeous. Zion is Utah's first national park, so that's pretty cool. You can think of all the beautiful national parks there are in Utah, like Canyonlands and Arches and Capitol Reef and Bryce, but this was the first. One thing I want to mention is just leave no trace. So leave no trace basically just says a couple things like pack out what you brought in. So if you do bring things in, no matter what it might be, even like a fruit, like an orange peel or something like that, you really do want to pack everything out, all your garbage. Really, the goal is to leave things nicer than when you came here. Sure, we might be leaving some impact, I guess, but we only want to leave our footprints, and we only want to take photos. So keep that in mind. Leave no trace is very important, so that these national parks can be enjoyed for years and years and hopefully centuries to come. I am always really impressed. I don't think I saw a single piece of garbage or anything on this trail. Maybe you guys can see them with the 360 one that I missed, but I hope not. So Zion is cool just because there's these massive sandstone cliffs. The colors are amazing. Absolutely beautiful. I was here in the springtime and it was just fantastic. Can get quite hot here, so keep that in mind on your hikes. You definitely want to bring a lot of water. Make sure to have enough electrolytes as well. Man, look at that view. Absolutely fantastic. And then you can also see you're climbing, you kind of have to navigate this tree here. You're stepping on some roots, making some big steps up. It's just fantastic. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions or feedback for me here. Zion is also famous for having tons of different slot canyons that you can get a permit. You do have to get a permit for all of the technical ones, but if canyoneering or you want to try canyoneering, there's definitely some guides that are available nearby. In the town of Springdale, which is the town just outside of the westernmost entrance of the park, you can find a guide, or if you're more experienced, you can either go to recreation.gov, or there's some lesser amount of incidents where you can get a permit at the visitor center, but that's not the most common. All right, so I looked up some statistics, and apparently since this hike opened, there has been around 17 deaths that have occurred. So it's certainly not, the risk certainly isn't zero. I would be super cautious on this hike if you were to try to go up, when it was raining or snowing. I mean, I know people do it, but definitely be prepared. I mean, if there's snow on it at all, definitely bring some sort of traction device like micro spikes or maybe even some sort of crampon. Gosh, I love Zion. It's just so beautiful. Just watching this as I kind of commentate makes me so happy. Funny to say that right after I'm like, oh yeah, 17 deaths. But definitely respect this place. And, if you go and you see after the first, couple hundred feet of chains that's really not for you, there's no shame in turning back. As I said, you can go up the rim trail a little bit, get some fantastic views up there. There's no need to push yourself beyond your limit. There's better places if you want to kind of just slightly test how you handle exposure and things like that. So, some might ask, why do they call it Angel's Landing? Well, there was a Methodist minister named Frederick Vining Fisher, and apparently his first visit to Zion Canyon was in 1916, and he mentioned that only an angel could live atop here, so therefore it is Angel's Landing. You can see this part of the hike. There's some big steps going up. It is nice because there are chains the whole way. But as you can see, there's definitely huge dropouts as well. So as far as when to go, I talked a little bit about how it can be hot and the importance of bringing water and salty snacks because your body does lose a lot of salt in the desert, which can wreak havoc if you get too hot. but spring and fall tend to be the best. And the reason for that is, in winter, this area does get snow, so that would make this a whole nother level of scary, / most people probably wouldn't even want to do Angel's Landing in the winter because it would be terrifying. And then summer, it just gets so hot. Like, it still can be a pretty place to visit, but it's just so unbearably hot. Like, I know a lot of people do have summer vacation and end up going here in the Grand Canyon, but just be super careful. I mean, it's kind of easy to get in over your head. I mean, even though there are trees here, as you'll notice, almost the entire trail is pretty exposed. So there's really not much shade. Right here I have some nice wind blowing me, so that feels good. But again, I'm here in spring. I was here like in the month of May, which is very nice, although there was the either the day before or the day after I remember going out, and it was extremely hot and a bit challenging on some of the other trails. And the average, the coldest month does have average temperatures below freezing, and 50% of the total annual precipitation does occur in spring and summer. And this area does receive less than 10 inches or 250 millimeters of rainfall. And while they do get some snow, there's not a ton of snow in this area. All right, so next, maybe we'll talk a little bit about Zion National Park. Zion comes from ancient Hebrew, and the first Anglo-European settlers, which were Mormon, arrived here in the late 1800s. And they named this area Zion, which is the ancient Hebrew for sanctuary. So, a nice little sanctuary here. And before it was called Zion National Park, it was a monument, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, but I might pronounce it poorly, but the monument is called Mukuntuweap National Monument. And that was established in 1909 by President Taft. 10 years later, they renamed Mukuntuweap to Zion. And how big is Zion? As I was kind of explaining earlier, a lot of the more popular places do get crowded because, the places where roads are and a lot of the trails are. Is a small region. As you can see, it's because of all these huge cliffs and everything, it's not exactly the easiest place to have a ton of roads going through. But Zion in total is 229 square miles. There's a lot of other cool things you can do in Zion. I kind of mentioned that you can go canyoneering if that interests you. There's a lot more hiking trails that I recommend checking out. One of them you can start and you can do almost a traverse of the full park. You used to be able to go and traverse the entire park, and it was a really popular running destination. I backpacked it once, and that was really cool. But now you can't go the whole way because the Weeping Rock trailhead is now closed currently. I think for a pretty long term. They've had some significant rock fall there, but you can do some pretty cool backpacking trips in here that aren't going to be super technical. There is this kind of algae that grows in some of the water, and you're not supposed to drink a lot of it, really expose yourself. So definitely keep your eye out for that and learn more about it. Obviously, what I just said isn't the definitive source for that. One of the other, most popular hikes in Zion is what's called the Zion Narrows. And basically, you go to the Temple of Sinawana, which is the last, from the visitor center, it's the last shuttle bus stop, and you basically walk like a mile or so down to the end of the trail, and then you can just straight up get in the river. It can be very cold, so a lot of people will rent, like, there's these special shoes you can get with like a wetsuit in the town of Springdale. There's a lot of places that offer that, so perhaps consider that. But it's a pretty cool experience. You walk up the Narrows. I mean, you can also get a ride or drive and hike down the Narrows, but that requires a permit. But no permit is required if you just hike up, do like an out and back up the stream. The only thing about that is that it really depends on the water level. Like, I was there maybe the day it opened, I think I went. Maybe it was the day after it opened that I went. But the water level was still quite high. Like, they look at how many cubic feet per second the river is flowing, the Zion River, or the Virgin River, excuse me. And if it's under a certain rate, they'll open it. But on those few opening days, it was pretty high still, so it's quite challenging and a little bit deep. I had a great time, but I didn't end up going super, super far. And just be prepared because you on the Narrows, because you are kind of stumbling through the water. It's certainly not a straightforward hike at all, but that's kind of what makes it cool, just like what makes Angel's Landing cool. So here we are, 20 minutes in. We're getting towards the end, but again, still slow moving. The best part too about this hike in my mind is just the views. Like, if you move the mouse around and check things out, there are just so many fantastic views all around. Absolutely amazing. So the ancestral Puebloans are thought to have lived here in Zion as far back as 1500 BC. So that's pretty cool to think about. The ancestral Puebloans lived in this area. Not a bad area to live in. Certainly beautiful. And Zion Canyon, which is this canyon that we're in right now, was carved over millions of years by the Virgin River. It is approximately 2,000 feet deep, so that's about 600 or 650 meters or so. As far as wildlife in the park, there's some pretty cool, like, the largest flying bird in North America is found here, which is, can anyone guess it? The California condor. Absolutely beautiful. They can, fly as fast as supposedly like 55 miles an hour. So that's almost 100 kilometers an hour. And they can go all the way up to, 4,000 meters or so, which is 15,000 feet. So that's pretty incredible. What's not incredible is that California condors have been on the endangered species list, but as far as I know, they have done some good breeding programs and reintroduction, and the population is growing. But you'll have to kind of look more of that up on your own if you are interested. It just blows my mind watching this here, just how few people are here. At the summit, we're going to see more people, but there's almost 80 species of mammals here, back to animals. There's over 30 species of amphibians and reptiles, and almost 300 species of birds, including the Mexican spotted owl, which they kind of warn you about, actually. They tell you to be quiet on one section of the trail, hiking up Angel's Landing, to not disturb the Mexican spotted owl. There's also a Mojave desert tortoise. That sounds pretty cool. I've never seen one of those here. Keep your eye out. Send me a photo if you can find one of the Mojave desert tortoise. If you see one, I'm sure I could Google it and find it. There's also mountain lions here, which of course is pretty cool. I doubt you'd really see one. Bighorn sheep are pretty common within the park, so you can see those, which are really cool. In another area of the park, quite a remote area of the park, is something called Kolob Arch. And it's one of the world's largest arches, but it is quite deep in the backcountry. I've been there once. It was beautiful, but quite remote. So now we're on the final kind of summit push. Again, make sure to be moving that mouse around. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know 360 videos for some people are like really cool, but I thought this one came out really well personally in terms of showing the exposure and stuff like that. Like if you're really interested in Zion, I'm hoping that this video can really help you and get you ready for that experience. But I know for other people, like if you're watching on Apple TV or on your TV or something, like it might not be as good just because it's a pain. You can't really move. I don't know how easy it is for everybody to move their mouse. But for those that you can, I hope you really like it. Zion has 5 million people visiting annually, which is kind of crazy. All right, so we'll sit here and we will enjoy these last couple minutes. Man, if you look at me, I look like I'm hurting. I gotta hit the gym and lose a little bit of weight, and that's all right. Most of my videos don't include me, just the 360 ones. Should have figured out a way to block myself out, but that's okay. I'm not too embarrassed. I feel so lucky that I got to come here, really. I was huffing and puffing, though. Again, I mean, hopefully, if my experience is going to be like yours, like I said, I've been here several times doing this hike, never ever seen this few people, but start as early as you possibly can. Get on that very first shuttle bus. Again, I was pretty surprised by the line of people that were there, so get there even earlier than the first shuttle bus, and you can kind of have it Angel's Landing to yourself, which is amazingly cool. So this is the final push to the summit here. You can see those people in one portion of the frame, and those are people hanging out on the summit. Thanks so much for spending the time to watch and join me here. Again, let me know if you have any feedback or anything. Also, feel free to drop a comment if you want to like or subscribe. I will be releasing a bunch of these videos with commentary just because I love hiking so much and to help people out to get an idea of what to expect. Oh man, so beautiful. See some people at the summit, but really only like 10 or so. So that's not bad. And you can kind of go off a little bit and find your own little place of comfort. Thanks again for joining me, you guys. Good luck on your Zion hike.